Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Elder Scrolls Central. I am Beaky with the Untitled Game Show YouTube channel, and in today's beginner's guide, we will be looking at the intelligence attributes, its advantages, its disadvantages, and some combos you guys could use to make it work for you. Let's jump right into it by looking at the early level cards before we get into some of these legendaries, but we will get there. So, of course, all different types of attributes, whether strength, intelligence, willpower, which we've already done videos on those, so go check the description to see those, they have disadvantages. But this one is one of those attributes that's very tricky. See, these cards don't have a lot of attack or a lot of defenses, but they could gain it very quickly. So we're going to start off to what makes this deck so dangerous, and it's all about these actions, aka spells if you've played the Skyrim or the Elder Scrolls franchise in the past. If you use a card like Crystal Tower Crafter, she gains the ability to get +1 attack and defense every single time an action like Firebolt is played. And then you could combo her with another card called Cunning Ally, which if the next card in your deck is an intelligence card, which means that most likely you're going to want to have a lot of intelligence cards in your deck to make sure this happens, that you get another free Firebolt put into your hand, and you get to use that, and every time you use an action like Firebolt or any other action, she gets stronger. And then you could even combo it with something like this, the Fire Bloom. Use Fire Bloom on a creature like the Brutal Ashlander, who gets destroyed, deals 3 damage to your opponent's random monster or life, and then the Fire Bloom deals 5 damage to a random creature, and Crystal Tower Crafter gets stronger. But of course, not everybody's going to want to play to just get stronger over time. You want to summon a lot of monsters, and this deck could do that as well. You could use something like Spy Master, equip him with a Fire Bloom, and that creates a stronger monster depending on how many magic you have. There's cards like him right here, the Negotiator, who gets you a free action if you have an action next coming up in your draw. So he'll basically draw that card for free immediately. You can play stuff like Dark Rift, which after 5 turns of dealing 1 damage to your opponent, which gives you a free freaking Storm Archanaut, which is a very powerful creature because it has Ward. And Ward is a big thing about this deck. There's a lot of creatures in this type of deck that has the power of Ward. And if you want to play with Wards, well, this works really well with Dragfall Mage, because after Dragfall Mage, which is a legendary creature, loses Ward, you get a perfectly great item. And this item is this one right over here, which gives you a free draw card and +2 attack and +2 defense. Now, maybe you want to play with more items, so, well, there's even a way to do that in this deck, because it's just a very tricky deck that works so well together. All these cards work so good that I think this is the best deck to play solo. I have decks of just pure intelligence. There's other decks like Strength, which you could try to play solo, but late game it doesn't really work. I think this deck works balanced from the beginning to the end as a pure intelligence only deck. Now, if you want to get a lot of cheap items, you have the Blacksmith right here, which makes all items cost 1 less. If you get 2 of him on the field, well, something like the Dunmer Nightblade, when she gets destroyed, you get an Iron Sword. That Iron Sword will basically be free. Or something like right here, the Quartermaster, when she gets summoned, she gives you an Iron Steel Dagger, and that Steel Dagger will be free as well if the Blacksmith is on the field. If you want to get a lot of monsters, there's stuff like Soul Split. Soul Split splits your monsters into 2 different monsters, so you can use that in something like Brutal Ashlander. He'll do 3 damage to your opponent, and you'll get 2 monsters at the same exact time. And also, if Crystal Tower Crafter is on the field, that'll be powering him up at the same exact time, or her in this case. Now, we've been talking a lot about these early level cards, and there's a very big reason for this. Let's just jump ahead to some of the higher cost cards. Let's talk about Wishmother, a card that I think that's very underutilized in high level play, but I have 3 of them because I think it's a very good card. It costs 400 soul gems to summon, so it's going to cost you, but every single time you play a low cost 2 or lower monster, she duplicates it into the other lane, gives you a free copy. Now if you combine that with, well, her right here, which her ability is when she summons 2 very strong creatures, and when another creature gets summoned at the same exact time, she deals 2 damage to the opponent's health directly. So say you have Wishmothers on the field first for 7 magical cost, then on your 9th turn you summon her, And then on your 10th turn, if you still haven't killed your opponent yet, which by that time you probably have, let's say you summon something like the Brutal Ashlander, you'll get 2 copies of the Brutal Ashlander, which will do 4 damage because of Supreme's ability. And if you sacrifice those Brutal Ashlander using a card like Fire Bloom, those Brutal Ashlanders will do 3 random damage to enemy creatures or to your opponent's health instantly, could give you the win. And not to say, that's on top of the ability to have stuff like, right here, a win card, Lightning Bolt. And if you combo Lightning Bolt with Hex Mage, every single time you activate a Lightning Bolt, Hex Mage will deal an extra 2 damage directly to your opponent's health. So there's a lot of ways to kill your opponent without even have to attack your opponent directly, just using stuff like Hex Mage, Lightning Bolt. You can use Fire Bolts on creatures, and then Hex Mage would still do 2 damage, because any single item that's used, it works really well. And if you're playing purely just for ward type creatures, you even have the Elixir of Deflection, which gives a creature ward. You don't have to have 3 of them like I have 3, but you definitely should at least have one of these in your deck if you're going to be playing with wards. And the wards really work well with creatures like him, who every single time he loses ward, he gets the ability to summon a really strong Frost Archanaut, which has guard. So there are a lot of different ways to guard yourself in this deck, and even guards like him right here eliminate the opponent's ability to use Shackle on your other creatures. So if he's on the field, Shackle won't work against you. But if you want to use Shackle, then you're going to have him, because every single time you use a Shackle, like this one right here, with this creature, you automatically do 3 damage to your opponent's creatures. So if you combo that with a creature like Harpy right here, which when it's summoned either through normal means or prophecy and shackles a creature, you automatically will do 3 damage if he is on the field. And let's say if you want to just do 3 damage to all your opponent's monsters, then there is Winter's Grasp, which does shackle to all your opponent's creature, which means that all your opponent's creature will be taking 3 damage if you have him on the field. Now imagine if you had 2 of him on the field. That's 6 damage to all those creatures, which would maybe wipe out the opponent's onslaught of creatures. So there's a lot of combo ability in this deck without even getting into these higher level costs cards right here. But let's say you wanted to use some higher level cost cards. Well, there's some really good ones out there like Mage Guild Retreat. This one for me is absolutely cool because every single time you use 2 actions, you gain the ability to summon a really strong card. So that's good for me. It's a random card, but it's really good. If you want to play Prophecies, you could use her right here. I see people use this card. It's personally not my favorite card to use, but if you want a deck that draws a lot of card, this is an option. As you've already seen, there's a lot of different ways to get cards in this deck because of the fact that stuff like when you have an intelligence card, you draw a free Firebolt right there. If you use him right here, the Peddler, every single time you use 2 actions, you gain a free draw card. Or right over here, you can split your monsters apart, or you can use Moment of Clarity, which gives you a random card in your hand. This is not a central card, but it's a nice card to have. And let's just talk about some late game crazy good strategies. So you could use somebody like Spy Master, which is really one of my favorite cards in this game. Combo him with something like Brilliant, which copies a creature, right? So him, you could copy that creature, and if you have 2 of these, which I only have 1 right now, I'm gonna soul summon some more. You could sacrifice him when you have a high amount of magicka, gain a really strong card, well, 2 stronger card, and then he will become another strong card himself. Like just different things you could put together, or the creature he becomes, you could sacrifice that creature and get even a stronger card. It's just, there's so many options with this deck. It just depends on how you want to play it. You could go all brutal, all out attack by using a card like this, which deals 2 damage when it's summoned. That's if you want to go really fast attack. You could use him with stuff like Lightning Bolt, use stuff like Cunning Ally, use stuff like the Craft Mage, well, the Crystal Tower Crafter, Firebolt, and just try to assault your opponent as fast as possible. But I really do think this is the best deck you could play completely and purely solo. And not to mention, if you want to draw more cards, there's an exclusive Schemer. I have a hard time saying this name, sorry about that. But basically, he has the ability to draw a card, and when he dies, he goes back into your deck, and if you draw him again, he costs 0. So, interesting card right there. So, a lot of different options, a lot of different tricks to play with an intelligence deck. This is probably going to be one of my longest beginner's tips, just because this deck is just so different options. And then there's this card. Now this card takes a long time to get on the field at 11 Magica cost, but if you ever get this on the field and keep it on the field for a few turns, you might just guarantee yourself winning. He deals 6 damage to a random opponent automatically when he is summoned, and on every single turn he summons a daughter of him, and that daughter deals 6 damage to your opponent's health. So yeah, dangerous card. You will probably need to combo him with something like an agility deck, because agility decks have cards that reduce the cost of higher level monsters like Thieves Guild Recruit. But we'll be talking about agility decks soon enough. So this has been Beaky here with the Untitled Game Show, and that's been a look at Intelligence deck. As you guys can clearly see, I've played these decks a lot. I really have a lot of fun with them, and I highly recommend you guys go ahead and try them out. I'll be back with more tips and tricks here on, say the name with me, guys. Come on. The Elder Scrolls Legend Central. Later, guys.